Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. We live in this wild age where reaching someone on the exact opposite side of the globe takes, less than a second? It's pretty amazing. Yet beneath all those endless group chats and infinite feeds, a really strange paradox is unfolding. Today we're going to explore the many contradictions of our social media culture. We'll look at how it influences the tiny decisions we make every single day, and we'll figure out how to navigate the tension between the very real, positive power of connection and the spiritual rot that comes with constant distraction and self-focus.
So let's start with a little mental model. I want you to imagine you've got this device in your pocket that can instantly reach 5 billion people. You would think loneliness would be completely eradicated, right? But instead, we are actively experiencing this widespread, silent epidemic of isolation. It is absolutely the defining paradox of our time. We have the tools to reach literally everyone, but we end up feeling truly known by almost no one.
Now think back to the original promise of social media. It was genuinely beautiful, wasn't it? This incredible positive attribute for building connection and an easy way to keep distant ties alive. But the reality today is kinda dark. The US Surgeon General is actually warning us about an increasingly disconnected, anxious society. We essentially traded the depth of real human connection for the sheer volume of a digital crowd. And that trade-off? It leaves us starved for the kind of attention that actually protects our health and gives our lives meaning.
To really ground this explainer, I want to lean on a perspective we'll call Papa's take. Papa is the author of the insights we're diving into, and he points out a scene that, let's be real, we've literally all witnessed. A group of friends sitting at a restaurant, totally silent, just bathed in that eerie blue glow of their phones. They're staging selfies while completely ignoring the living, breathing humans sitting right across the table. Digital feeds have quietly, almost invisibly, replaced our deep biological necessity for face-to-face belonging. It's crazy, actually, because our human hunger for interaction runs so incredibly deep that we've spent decades trying to program machines to talk to us. As far back as 1966, an AI named ELIZA was mimicking a therapist. And today, advanced AI sounds unbelievably caring. But here's the catch. A machine cannot feel concern. It takes absolutely zero responsibility for you. These digital companions offer the illusion of conversation, but they completely lack human empathy. We desperately want to connect, sure, but using tech as a substitute for a human just isn't healthy.
Okay, but here is where the tension really builds. The US Surgeon General released data recently that honestly should stop us right in our tracks. The mortality impact of being socially disconnected is similar to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Just let that sink in for a second. 15 cigarettes. Loneliness isn't just a sad feeling, you guys. It is a full-blown physical health crisis. Our bodies literally break down when we are isolated from one another.
Now, for years, it felt like a chicken or egg debate, right? People argued, does social media actually cause this loneliness, or do lonely people just happen to scroll more? Well, a landmark study at the University of Pennsylvania finally proved the link. By tracking actual real-world smartphone usage, they found that actively reducing your time on social platforms directly decreases depression and loneliness. The so what here is absolutely crucial. The less these feeds dominate your attention, the better you feel.
And here's a totally wild twist. You might assume that actively posting, commenting and messaging all the time would make you feel more connected than just being a passive scroller. But a massive study over in the Netherlands found the exact opposite. Active users can actually feel way lonelier. Why? Because spending all that time curating the perfect post, only to be met with crickets? Man, that hurts. It creates this vicious cycle of seeking validation that ultimately leaves you feeling far more disconnected than before.
So why does that sting of digital silence hurt so much? Well, it all comes down to how our brains are hardwired. Specifically, this psychological trap called the self-serving bias. It's basically our natural tendency to take personal credit when we succeed, but totally blame outside factors when we fail. So, when you start tying your self-worth to your online image, a lack of likes feels like a direct personal attack on your identity. See, when our perfectly curated image is threatened online, our brain doesn't just brush it off. No way. It treats that threat to our ego like a literal, physical, flashing red alarm. And this pulls all our energy inward. It leads straight to that spiritual rot we talked about earlier. We become so utterly consumed with defending these polished digital avatars that we completely lose focus on true craftsmanship and building meaningful, real-world relationships. We just get trapped in this endless, anxious loop.
So, how do we step out of the loop? How do we reclaim our humanity? Let's return to Papa's take. He points out that watching social interaction through a screen is just a ghost of the real thing.
It absolutely cannot replace the biological and emotional connection of a genuinely great conversation. We are a social species, plain and simple. We literally have to step away from the screen and show up for one another in physical spaces if we want to truly belong.
And to fight back against this constant distraction, we can actually look to ancient wisdom. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld was recently talking about his deep admiration for the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. And Seinfeld's take on it is incredibly practical for our digital age. He says, "Focus only on what you're doing. Nothing else matters. Getting upset about anything else is just a waste of time." Think about that. All that hand-wringing over how people view you online, it's just wasted energy.
Now, this doesn't mean we just completely ignore all outside feedback. Papa's father, who we'll call Papa Q Bear, a really profound voice of wisdom, always advised to listen with both ears when receiving constructive criticism. You have to learn to separate the actually helpful insights from the totally pointless noise coming from the cheap seats. It takes a lot of humility, for sure. But if you focus on the fruits of your labor rather than your ego, criticism actually becomes a powerful tool for growth.
And really, this brings us right to the core of Stoic philosophy, choosing self-perfection over external validation. Those who can rule themselves usually have zero interest in obsessing over the opinions of random online critics. If you have power over your own mind, the unpredictable, chaotic energy of the social media feed just can't control your emotions. You are finally free.
Okay, so what's a practical, everyday way to actually use technology intentionally, instead of letting it use us? Well, your smartphone actually has some hidden superpowers built right in, like those accessibility features on an iPhone that play continuous, soothing sounds to mask distracting noise. Whether it's the sound of rain or ocean waves playing directly from your device, it's a brilliant little trick to maintain your focus, calm your sensory input, and do deep, meaningful work without getting sucked into a feed.
So, to escape this whole social media paradox, we really have to remember these key takeaways. First, real physical connection. It's literally vital medicine that protects our health. Second, social media can totally fuel isolation and trap us in that self-serving bias. Third, we need to direct our energy inward to what we can actually control. Fourth, use your tech intentionally, not as a fake human substitute. And finally, remember that sometimes the only way to move closer to people is to take a big step back from the screen. All right, I want to leave you with one final Papa-inspired thought for today. The defining paradox of our time totally doesn't have to be the paradox of your life. So I have a challenge for you. Will you pick up the phone, call a friend today, and make a real voice-to-voice connection? Seriously, don't text them, call them. You might just find that taking that one simple action not only brightens their day, but cures a little bit of the loneliness inside yourself. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.